Sophia made it 3 blocks before her legs gave out. She stumbled against a bus shelter, sinking onto the frozen bench, while Emma's cries intensified. Her daughter was cold, hungry, terrified by the wind and the chaos of being suddenly thrust into winter without proper protection. "I'm sorry," Sophia whispered, pulling Emma tighter against her chest, trying to share what little body heat she had left. "I'm so sorry, baby. Mommy's going to figure this out. I promise. I promise I'll keep you safe." Her phone, the dead phone still in her pocket, suddenly buzzed. One last gasp of battery life before it died completely. A text message from an unknown number, against every instinct screaming at her to ignore it. Sophia pulled out the phone with numb fingers and opened the message. It was a photo. Marcus and a woman. Young, blonde, thin, perfect in all the ways Sophia currently wasn't. They were in the house, Sophia's house, her kitchen, kissing. The woman's hand was prominently displayed, showing off an engagement ring that caught the light. Below the photo, a message. "Thanks for warming the bed, fat cow. Don't worry, I'll take better care of Marcus than you ever could. Enjoy freezing." Sophia stared at the screen until it went black, the phone dying completely. Her mind struggled to process what she'd just seen. Marcus wasn't just divorcing her. He'd already replaced her, already proposed to someone else. This wasn't a spontaneous decision born from postpartum stress and new parent exhaustion. This was planned, orchestrated. Patricia had found Marcus a replacement, someone younger and prettier and more manageable, and they'd just been waiting for the right moment to execute their plan. The right moment happened to be 3 weeks after Sophia gave birth, when she was at her most vulnerable, her most exhausted, her most dependent. Emma's cries turned desperate now, that particular sound that meant she was hungry and cold and needed her mother to fix everything right now. Sophia tried to adjust her coat to provide more warmth, but the coat was thin. A spring jacket she'd grabbed without thinking, not nearly warm enough for a December blizzard. She looked around the bus shelter. Empty streets, no cars passing, no people walking. Everyone with sense was inside, safe from the storm. Only Sophia and her newborn daughter were out here, abandoned and forgotten. A memory hit her then, sudden and sharp. Her grandmother Catherine's voice, speaking to her years ago when Sophia had been crying over some high school drama that felt devastating at the time. "The Chen women don't break," Catherine had said in Mandarin, her accent thick even after 40 years in America. "We bend. We adapt. We survive. And then we make sure no one underestimates us again." Sophia hadn't understood it then. She'd been 16, worried about prom dates and college applications. But sitting in that bus shelter with her dying daughter and her destroyed life, the words took on new meaning. She couldn't break. Not here. Not now. Emma needed her to survive this. Sophia stood on shaking legs, adjusted the duffel bag on her shoulder, and started walking again. 4 miles to the shelter, 1 foot in front of the other. Keep Emma as warm as possible. Keep moving. Don't think about Marcus laughing inside their warm house. Don't think about the blonde woman in her kitchen. Don't think about Patricia's satisfied smile. Just walk. The snow fell harder. The wind cut deeper. Sophia's feet went numb in her inadequate boots. Emma cried herself hoarse, then into an exhausted whimper that was somehow worse than the crying. But Sophia kept walking. Twice, cars passed without stopping. Once, she tried to wave one down, desperate for help. But it accelerated past her like she was invisible. Another time, a police car slowed, and Sophia felt a moment of hope. But the officer just looked at her, made a decision she couldn't read, and drove away. She was alone, completely, utterly alone in a city of 3 million people. It took 97 minutes to reach the shelter. 97 minutes that felt like hours, like days, like an eternity of cold and fear and Emma's small sounds of distress. When Sophia finally saw the lit sign, New Beginnings Women's Shelter, she started crying, tears freezing on her cheeks as she stumbled toward the door. A woman answered her knock. 50s, kind eyes, expression shifting from routine welcome to alarm as she took in Sophia's condition. "Oh my God. How long have you been outside?" "I don't know." Sophia's voice came out as a croak. "An hour? Maybe more? My baby, she's so cold." The woman, her name tag said Helen, pulled them inside immediately, calling for other staff members, taking Emma from Sophia's frozen arms with practiced gentleness. "Maria, get blankets. Call Dr. Sanders. Tell her we have a newborn with possible hypothermia, and get this mother somewhere warm right now." The next hour blurred into a chaos of warm blankets, medical examinations, hot drinks Sophia couldn't quite taste. Dr. Sanders checked Emma thoroughly, her face serious but not panicked, which Sophia chose to take as a good sign. "She's okay," the doctor finally said, and Sophia sobbed with relief so intense it hurt. Cold, stressed, but okay. No frostbite. Core temperatures coming back up. "You got here in time." "And you?" Helen sat down beside Sophia, wrapping another blanket around her shoulders. "What happened to you?" Sophia opened her mouth to answer and found she couldn't speak. Couldn't put into words what had just happened. Couldn't explain how she'd gone from married mother to homeless refugee in the span of 2 hours. Helen seemed to understand. "You don't have to tell me now. Just rest. You're safe here. Both of you are safe." Safe. The word felt foreign. But as Sophia sat in the warm shelter, Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms for the first time since they'd been thrown out, she let herself believe it might be true. She didn't know yet about the letter, about her grandmother's fortune, about the empire waiting for her. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Marcus and Patricia Marshall had made a catastrophic mistake. They'd tried to break her. Instead, they'd just freed her. And when she was ready, when Emma was safe and Sophia was strong again, they would learn exactly what happened when you underestimated a Chen woman. Back at the house that was no longer Sophia's, Marcus Marshall poured himself a drink and tried to ignore the twist of guilt in his stomach. It was a small twist, manageable, something that would fade with time and rationalization. His mother Patricia sat on the couch, already on her phone, probably texting her country club friends about her successful intervention in her son's failing marriage. She looked satisfied in a way that made Marcus uncomfortable, though he couldn't articulate exactly why. "I'm proud of you," Patricia said without looking up from her phone. "I know that wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Sophia was dragging you down. Now you can start fresh." Marcus took a long sip of his whiskey. "She looked really broken, Mom. And Emma." "Emma will be fine," Patricia interrupted. "Children are resilient, and Sophia is an adult who made poor choices. She let herself go. She quit her job. She became dependent. None of that is your responsibility to fix." "We have a child together," Marcus said quietly. "That makes it my responsibility." Patricia finally looked up, her expression hardening. "Your responsibility is to yourself, to your future, to the Marshall family name, not to some woman who couldn't maintain herself properly even with every advantage you gave her." The doorbell rang. Marcus welcomed the interruption, setting down his drink and walking to the door. A young woman stood there. Melissa Crawford, 26 years old, marketing associate from his firm. The woman from the photo. The woman Patricia had been not so subtly pushing into his path for the past 6 months. "Hi," Melissa said, her smile bright but tentative. "Your mom said I should come over? That we could celebrate?" Marcus glanced back at Patricia, who was already clearing space on the couch, pulling out a bottle of champagne she must have brought specifically for this moment. Everything orchestrated, everything planned. "Come in," Marcus said. Because what else could he say? He'd already made his choice, already ended his marriage, already abandoned his wife and newborn daughter. Backing out now wouldn't undo any of that. It would just make it all pointless. Melissa entered, kissing him on the cheek in that way that suggested intimacy without crossing into anything that could be called inappropriate in front of his mother. She'd been doing that for months. Small touches, lingering looks, conversations that felt charged with possibility. Marcus had told himself it was innocent, that he was just friends with a coworker, that he wasn't encouraging anything. But he'd been lying to himself. He knew that now. Known it for a while, actually. Patricia popped the champagne cork with practiced ease. "To new beginnings," she announced, pouring 3 glasses. To Marcus finally choosing happiness over obligation. And to Melissa, who's been patient and understanding through this entire difficult situation. They clinked glasses. Marcus drank, tasting nothing but guilt and confusion and the bitter knowledge that this victory didn't feel like he'd thought it would. "I sent Sophia a little goodbye message," Melissa said, pulling out her phone with a giggle. "Just to make sure she understood the situation. I know that sounds mean, but your mom said she needed clarity. That she was the type who might keep hoping if we weren't direct." Marcus took the phone, saw the photo of him and Melissa kissing, saw the cruel message below it. His stomach turned. "You sent this? Today? While she's out there with Emma in a blizzard?" Melissa's smile faltered. "Your mom said..." "My mother says a lot of things." Marcus cut her off, handing back the phone with more force than necessary. "That doesn't make them right." "Marcus," Patricia's voice took on that warning tone he knew too well. "Don't start second-guessing yourself. This is what needed to happen. Sophia was making you miserable. Look how much lighter you seem already." But Marcus didn't feel lighter. He felt heavier, like he'd just picked up a weight he'd be carrying for the rest of his life. He thought about Sophia's face when he'd confirmed the divorce. The way she'd looked at him like he was a stranger. The way Emma had been crying. That newborn cry that pierced straight through everything. His daughter, 3 weeks old, somewhere out in the cold because he'd been too weak to stand up to his mother. "I need some air," Marcus said abruptly, setting down his champagne and heading for the back door. "Marcus," Patricia called after him. But he was already outside, standing on the deck, breathing in freezing air that burned his lungs. What had he done? The question circled his mind like a vulture. He'd known Sophia was struggling after Emma's birth, known she was exhausted and overwhelmed and probably dealing with postpartum depression, known she'd sacrificed her career, a career she'd loved, because he'd asked her to, because he'd wanted a wife who stayed home, who made his life easier, who put his needs first. And when she'd done exactly that, when she'd gained weight from pregnancy and lost herself in the demands of newborn care, he'd let his mother convince him that Sophia was the problem, that she'd changed, that she wasn't good enough anymore. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Marshall?" A woman's voice, professional, cold. "This is Helen Winters from New Beginnings Women's Shelter. I'm calling about Sophia Chen." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Is she okay? Is Emma—" "They're safe," Helen interrupted, her tone making it clear that safe was a relative term. "But I want you to understand something. Your wife arrived here 90 minutes ago after walking over 4 miles in a blizzard with a 3-week-old baby. She had no money, no phone, no transportation. Do you understand what could have happened to them?" Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. "I didn't. My mother said—" "I don't care what your mother said." Helen's voice could have cut glass. "I care that a woman who gave birth 3 weeks ago was thrown out of her home and forced to walk through a blizzard. I've been doing this job for 20 years, Mr. Marshall. I've seen a lot of terrible things. But this is one of the cruelest." "Let me talk to her," Marcus said desperately. "Let me explain. She doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't want anything from you. I'm calling because legally I have to notify the father when a minor child is brought to a shelter. Consider yourself notified. Don't contact her. Don't try to visit. You've done enough damage." The line went dead. Marcus stood there, phone in hand, the weight of what he'd done finally crashing down on him. This wasn't a brave choice to follow his happiness. This wasn't choosing himself over obligation. This was cruelty. This was cowardice. This was exactly what Helen had called it. One of the cruelest things she'd seen in 20 years of working with abused women. He'd abused his wife. Maybe not with his hands, but with his words, his choices, his willingness to let his mother orchestrate this destruction. "Marcus?" Melissa appeared in the doorway, concern on her face. "Are you okay? Your mom wants to make dinner plans. She thinks we should go somewhere nice to celebrate." "Celebrate what?" Marcus heard himself say. "That I just threw my wife and baby out into a blizzard? That they're in a women's shelter right now? That I've become exactly the kind of man I always swore I'd never be?" Melissa's face fell. "I thought your mom said you wanted this. That Sophia wasn't right for you. That we could out—" "My mom says a lot of things," Marcus interrupted again. "And I've been stupid enough to listen to every one of them." He pushed past her, back into the house where Patricia was scrolling through restaurant menus on her tablet. "Mom," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "What have we done?" Patricia looked up, her expression showing no concern, no doubt, no second thoughts at all. "We've freed you from a mistake," she said simply. "Now stop being dramatic and help me pick a restaurant." Marcus looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw something he'd never noticed before. Or maybe he'd noticed and ignored it. A coldness, a complete lack of empathy, a willingness to destroy someone else's life if it served her purposes. "I need to know something," Marcus said slowly. "Did you plan this? The whole thing? Getting me interested in Melissa? Convincing me Sophia wasn't good enough? Timing it for right after Emma was born when Sophia was at her most vulnerable?" Patricia smiled. Actually smiled. "Of course I planned it. Did you really think this happened spontaneously?" "Marcus, I've been working on this for months. Since the moment Sophia announced her pregnancy. I knew she'd be a dead weight, knew she'd trap you with that baby. So I found you a better option." She gestured to Melissa, who was standing in the doorway looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Melissa is exactly what you need. Young, attractive, ambitious, from a good family. She won't let herself go. Won't quit her job. Won't become some exhausted, unattractive burden. I did this for you, for your future." The words should have made Marcus angry. Should have made him defend his mother, defend his choices, defend the narrative he'd been building in his head to justify abandoning his family. Instead, they made him nauseous. "Get out," Marcus said quietly. Patricia's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "Get out of my house, both of you. Now." "Marcus, don't be ridiculous." "Get out!" Marcus's voice rose to a shout that surprised even himself. "I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. You manipulated me. You manipulated Melissa. You destroyed my marriage and my family because you wanted to play puppet master with my life. Get out before I say something I can't take back." Patricia stood slowly, her face transforming from surprised to cold fury. "You're going to regret this," she said quietly. "When you realize what a mistake Sophia was, when you understand that I was trying to help you, when you see how much better off you could have been, you'll come crawling back, and I might not be willing to help you then." "I'm already filled with regret," Marcus said. "But not about Sophia. About listening to you. About being weak enough to let you convince me that my wife gaining pregnancy weight was some kind of moral failing. About abandoning my daughter when she's 3 weeks old. That's what I regret." Patricia grabbed her coat and purse, her movements sharp with anger. Melissa followed, looking like she wasn't sure what was happening or how she'd gotten caught up in it. "One more thing," Patricia said from the doorway. "Don't come crying to me when you find out Sophia isn't the victim you're making her out to be. I know things about her family, about her grandmother, things that might surprise you." She left before Marcus could ask what she meant. The house was suddenly silent, except for the sound of Marcus's breathing and the wind howling outside. He sat down on the couch, his head in his hands, and tried to figure out how to fix something that might be completely unfixable. He didn't know yet about the letter, about the $600 million, about the empire Sophia had just inherited, about how thoroughly he'd just destroyed his life while thinking he was improving it. But he would find out soon. And when he did, the guilt he felt now would be nothing compared to what was coming. Sleep didn't come for Marcus that night. He lay in bed, the bed he'd shared with Sophia for 4 years, the bed where Emma had been conceived, the bed that now felt too big and too empty, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of the day. At 3 a.m., unable to stand his own thoughts anymore, he got up and started cleaning. Not because anything was dirty, but because doing something with his hands stopped his mind from circling the same terrible thoughts over and over. That's when he found it. Buried under a pile of junk mail that Patricia had tossed on the kitchen counter before she'd left in anger, there was an envelope. Cream-colored, expensive-looking, with a law firm's return address. Anderson, Chen and Associates Attorneys at Law, Chicago. IAL, addressed to Sophia Chen Marshall. Marcus stared at it for a long moment. He shouldn't open it. It was Sophia's mail. But something about the formal nature of it, about the timing, made his hand reach for the envelope before his conscience could stop him. Inside was a letter, dated 2 weeks ago. Dear Mrs. Marshall, this letter serves as formal notification that you are the primary beneficiary of the estate of Catherine Lynn Chen, deceased. As the executor of Mrs. Chen's will, I must inform you that immediate action is required to initiate the transfer of assets. The total estate value has been assessed at approximately $600 million, including but not limited to commercial real estate holdings across Chicago, New York, and San Francisco, controlling shares in Chen Manufacturing Group, investment portfolios managed through 3 separate trusts, personal property, and liquid assets. Mrs. Chen left specific instructions that this inheritance be transferred to you only after the birth of your child, as she wished to ensure that the Chen family wealth would continue to the next generation. Please contact our office immediately to begin the transfer process. Time-sensitive legal matters require your urgent attention. Sincerely, Robert Anderson, Senior Partner. Marcus read the letter 3 times, then a 4th. Then he set it down with shaking hands and stared at the wall. $600 million. Sophia's grandmother, the quiet woman who'd lived in a small apartment in Chinatown, who'd always seemed nice but unremarkable, who'd passed away 6 months ago during Sophia's pregnancy, had been worth $600 million, and Marcus had thrown Sophia out into a blizzard the same day she would have discovered this. The same day, she became one of the wealthiest women in Chicago. He picked up his phone, mind racing. Tried to call the law firm. Got an after-hours message. Tried to Google Catherine Chen, and when the search results loaded, his stomach dropped further. Catherine Lin Chen, born 1945, immigrated from Taiwan in 1970. Founded Chen Manufacturing in 1975. A small operation making industrial components that had grown into a major supplier for automotive and aerospace industries. Married to David Chen, who died in 1995. No other children. One granddaughter. There were articles about Catherine from the business section. Photos of her at industry events, always dressed modestly, always in the background, never seeking attention. An interview from 1998 where she talked about building wealth quietly, about not drawing attention, about protecting her family by staying invisible. The people who talk about their money usually don't have it, she'd said in the interview. The people who have it don't need to talk about it. Catherine Chen had been brilliant, strategic. She'd built an empire while everyone around her assumed she was just a nice widow living off her late husband's pension. And Marcus had never known, never asked, never bothered to learn anything about Sophia's family beyond surface pleasantries at holiday dinners. He kept searching, finding more information with each click. Chen Manufacturing Group employed over 2,000 people. Had government contracts, had been expanding into new markets, was currently valued at close to $800 million, with Catherine's estate controlling 75% of the shares. Sophia wasn't just wealthy. She was powerful. Or she would be, once she found out. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his sister Rachel, sent at 3:17 a.m., which meant she couldn't sleep either. Did you really do it? Mom's telling everyone you divorced Sophia today. Please tell me that's not true. He typed back, It's true, and I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. Her response came immediately. What happened? Marcus took a photo of the letter, sent it to her. 3 dots appeared for a long time. Then, oh my God, Marcus. Do you understand what you've done? I'm starting to. Mom knew, didn't she? That's what this was about. She found out somehow about the inheritance and wanted you divorced from Sophia before the money transferred. Marcus felt his blood run cold. That last comment from Patricia before she'd left. Don't come crying to me when you find out Sophia isn't the victim you're making her out to be. I know things about her family. Patricia had known, had researched Sophia's family, had discovered Catherine's hidden wealth. And instead of seeing it as something that would benefit Marcus and Emma, she'd seen it as something that would make Sophia too independent, too powerful, too hard to control. So she'd orchestrated the divorce, found Melissa, spent months manipulating Marcus, timed it perfectly for right after Emma's birth, when Sophia would be at her most vulnerable and least likely to be thinking about inheritance paperwork. Mom set me up, Marcus typed. She manipulated everything. and I was too stupid to see it. What are you going to do? Marcus looked at the letter again, at the numbers that made his annual salary look like pocket change, at the proof that he'd thrown away not just his marriage, but any chance of financial security, any claim to the moral high ground, any possibility of ever seeing himself as anything but the villain in this story. I don't know, he finally typed. I don't think there's anything I can do. He tried calling Sophia's phone, got a message that the number was no longer in service. Of course, he'd canceled her plan himself earlier that day. He tried calling the shelter, where Helen had said they were staying. Got a receptionist who informed him that residents' information was confidential and he'd need to speak with a supervisor during business hours. He drove to the shelter at 4 a.m., parked outside, stared at the lit windows, and tried to work up the courage to go inside and face what he'd done. But courage failed him. He sat in his car for 2 hours, watching the sun come up, and finally drove home without ever getting out. At 9 a.m., he called the law firm. I need to speak with Robert Anderson about Catherine Chen's estate, he said to the receptionist who answered. And you are? Marcus Marshall. I'm Sophia Chen's husband. One moment, please. The hold music was classical, soothing, designed to make people feel important and wealthy. It made Marcus feel sick. Mr. Marshall. A man's voice came on the line, cold and professional. I'm Robert Anderson. How can I help you? My wife, ex-wife, Sophia. There's a letter here about Catherine Chen's estate. I need to understand, why are you calling about Mrs. Marshall's inheritance? Anderson interrupted, his tone making it clear this was not normal protocol. Because I need to know. We just got divorced, and I need to understand how that affects. It doesn't affect anything, Anderson cut him off. The inheritance is structured as separate property, untouchable by any spouse regardless of marital status. Even if you were still married, you'd have zero claim to any of Mrs. Chen's assets. They're Sophia's alone. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. But I'm the father of her child, Catherine's great-grandchild. That has to count for... Mr. Marshall? Anderson's voice was colder now. Let me be very clear. You have no claim, no rights, and no standing regarding this estate. Catherine Chen specifically structured it this way to protect her granddaughter from exactly this kind of situation. She anticipated that someone might try to use Sophia's wealth for their own benefit. So she made it impossible. I'm not trying to use... Then why are you calling? Why are you asking about an inheritance that has nothing to do with you? Marcus had no answer for that. If you're calling to try to reconnect with Sophia now that you know about the money, Anderson continued, let me save you the effort. She wants nothing to do with you. She's made that abundantly clear to everyone at this firm. She knows? Marcus felt hope and despair mixed together. She's been in contact with you? I'm not at liberty to discuss my client's activities with her ex-husband, Anderson said. But I will tell you this. Sophia Chen is under our firm's protection now. If you attempt to contact her, harass her, or interfere with her access to her inheritance, we will pursue legal action. Do you understand? I just want to make sure she's okay. That Emma is okay. They're fine. Better than fine. Now, unless you have legitimate business to discuss, I need to end this call. The line went dead. Marcus sat in his empty house, staring at the letter that had changed everything, and understood with crushing certainty that his life as he knew it was over. He'd thrown away a woman worth $600 million, abandoned a child who would grow up with every advantage, destroyed a marriage to a woman who was about to become one of the most powerful people in Chicago. And he'd done it all because his mother had convinced him that Sophia wasn't good enough. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't devastating. Sophia spent her first night at the shelter in a small room with 3 other women, all of them mothers, all of them with stories that made her realize her situation. While devastating, wasn't unique. Women got abandoned every day. Husbands walked away, families fell apart. The only difference was the timing and the cruelty of the execution. Emma slept in a donated bassinet beside Sophia's cot, finally warm and safe and fed. Dr. Sanders had checked her again before leaving, declaring her healthy despite the ordeal, remarking that babies were more resilient than people gave them credit for. Sophia wished she felt resilient. Instead, she felt hollowed out, like someone had reached inside her chest and removed everything that made her human, leaving only the mechanical necessities of breathing and existing. Helen found her at 6 a.m., sitting up on her cot, staring at Emma while the other women slept. "Can't sleep?" Helen asked quietly, sitting down on the empty cot across from Sophia. "Every time I close my eyes, I see his face," Sophia whispered. "The way he looked at me like I was nothing, like I'd become something disgusting that he needed to get rid of." Helen nodded, the gesture of someone who'd heard this story 1,000 times in 1,000 variations. "What he did to you was abuse," Helen said. "Not physical abuse, but emotional and financial abuse. Taking all your money, canceling your phone, throwing you out with a newborn in a blizzard. That's not divorce. That's cruelty designed to break you." "It worked," Sophia's voice cracked. "I'm broken." "No," Helen said firmly. "You're hurt. There's a difference. Broken things can't be fixed. Hurt things heal." She handed Sophia a phone, an old smartphone, nothing fancy, but functional. "This is a shelter phone. Limited plan, but you can make calls, access the internet. First thing you need to do is start putting your life back together. Do you have family? Friends who can help?" Sophia shook her head. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. My grandmother died 6 months ago. I don't have siblings, and my friends..." She paused, realizing how thoroughly Patricia had isolated her. "I don't think I have friends anymore. They all just kind of drifted away." "That's common with controlling families," Helen said. "They systematically cut you off from support systems, so you're completely dependent. But you're not dependent anymore. You're here. You're safe. And now, you get to decide what happens next." Sophia took the phone with trembling hands. "I don't even know where to start." "Start with the basics. Is there anyone you need to contact? Any paperwork you need to handle? Anything urgent?" Sophia thought about it. There had been a letter from her grandmother's attorney, she remembered. Months ago, right after Catherine died. Something about the estate, about settling Catherine's affairs. Sophia had meant to call them back. But then the pregnancy had gotten complicated, and then Emma had been born, and she'd kept putting it off. "My grandmother's lawyer," Sophia said slowly. "There was something about her estate. I never followed up. I should probably do that." "Do you remember the firm's name?" Sophia closed her eyes, trying to pull the memory through the fog of exhaustion and trauma. "Anderson something. Anderson, Chen and Associates, I think. In downtown Chicago." Helen pulled out her own phone, searched quickly. Found it. Anderson, Chen and Associates, specializing in estate planning and wealth management. She looked up at Sophia. "Your grandmother must have had some assets to go with a firm like that." "I don't think so," Sophia said. "She lived very simply. Small apartment in Chinatown. She worked as..." Sophia paused, Realizing she didn't actually know what her grandmother had done for work, Catherine had always been vague about it, and Sophia had never pushed. Helen watched her face change. You don't know what she did? I thought she was just, I don't know, retired? She never talked about work, never talked about money. She just lived quietly and gave me advice about staying strong and being patient and not letting people underestimate me. Those sound like words from someone who knew something about being underestimated, Helen observed. Sophia looked down at the phone in her hands, then at Emma sleeping peacefully, then back at Helen. I should call them, Sophia said. The lawyers. I should at least find out what needs to be handled. Do you want privacy? Sophia nodded. Helen stood, squeezed her shoulder gently, and left her alone in the room with the sleeping women and her infant daughter and the phone that was about to change everything. She dialed the number with shaking hands. It was 6:15 a.m., too early for most offices, but the phone rang anyway. Anderson, Chen and Associates. A professional voice answered. How may I direct your call? I need to speak with someone about Catherine Chen's estate. This is her granddaughter, Sophia. One moment, please. The hold music was brief. Then a man's voice came on the line, alert despite the early hour. Mrs. Marshall, this is Robert Anderson. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. I'm sorry, Sophia said automatically, defaulting to the apology that had become her instinct. Things have been complicated. I had a baby and... I know, Anderson interrupted, his tone gentler than she expected. Your grandmother's will specified that we wait until after your child was born to initiate contact. She wanted you to focus on your pregnancy and your baby's arrival without the distraction of estate matters. But it's been 3 weeks now, and we have time-sensitive issues that require your attention. What kind of issues? The kind best discussed in person. Can you come to our office today? I understand this is short notice, but truly, this cannot wait any longer. Sophia looked down at herself. She was wearing clothes from the shelter's donation pile. Her hair hadn't been washed in 2 days. She had no car, no money for a cab, and a 3-week-old baby who needed to be fed every 2 hours. I'm not sure I can. I'll send a car, Anderson said. Where are you? Sophia gave him the shelter's address, half expecting judgment or questions. Instead, he simply said, a car will be there in 45 minutes. Bring your daughter. We have a quiet room where you can nurse or change her. And Mrs. Marshall, please don't worry about anything except getting here safely. Everything else, we'll handle. The call ended. Sophia sat there, staring at the phone, trying to understand what had just happened. 45 minutes later, exactly as promised, a black car pulled up in front of the shelter. Not a cab. A town car with a professional driver who held the door open for her, helped her settle Emma in a car seat that was already installed, and drove them downtown to an address in the Loop without asking any questions. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place Sophia had only visited during her architecture days for client meetings, the kind of place that screamed money and power. Anderson, Chen and Associates occupied the entire 42nd floor. The elevator doors opened directly into a reception area that looked like something from a design magazine. Minimalist, expensive, intimidating in its perfection. Robert Anderson met her personally. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything and judge nothing. Mrs. Marshall, he shook her hand warmly. Thank you for coming. I know this is difficult timing. Please, come with me. He led her past the reception area, past offices where lawyers worked at desks, into a corner conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. A woman was already there, Asian, mid-50s, professional, but not cold. "This is Linda Wang," Anderson introduced her. "She's the CFO of Chen Manufacturing and has been managing your grandmother's financial affairs since your grandfather passed." Sophia felt her confusion deepen. "Chen Manufacturing? I don't understand." "My grandmother, your grandmother," Anderson said, gesturing for her to sit, "was one of the most brilliant businesswomen I have ever known. And she spent 40 years making sure almost no one knew it." He opened a folder, began spreading documents across the conference table. Property deeds, stock certificates, bank statements, each one with numbers that made Sophia's vision blur. Catherine Chen founded Chen Manufacturing in 1975. Linda Wang began, her voice warm but professional. "She started with a $50,000 loan and a single industrial sewing machine in a warehouse in Pilsen. Over the next 40 years, she built it into a major supplier of industrial components for automotive, aerospace, and manufacturing companies." She pulled up a presentation on the screen at the end of the conference room. Photos of factories, charts showing growth, articles from trade publications. "She was brilliant at identifying market gaps," Linda continued. "In the 80s, she saw the automation trend and pivoted to precision machined parts. In the 90s, she secured government contracts. In the 2000s, she diversified into specialty materials. The company currently employs 2,300 people across facilities in Chicago, Ohio, and Texas." Sophia stared at the images on the screen. "My grandmother ran all this?" "Ran it, grew it, and protected it," Anderson said. "She was obsessive about keeping a low profile. She never gave interviews, never attended industry conferences under her own name. She had other people serve as the public face of the company while she controlled it from behind the scenes." "Why?" Linda and Anderson exchanged glances. "Because your grandmother came from a generation and a community where visible wealth made you a target," Linda said quietly. "She'd seen it happen to other immigrant families. Success bringing jealousy, bringing threats, bringing people who wanted to use you. So she decided to be invisible, to let everyone think she was just a widow living off her husband's pension." "She lived in a small apartment," Sophia whispered. "She clipped coupons. She bought store-brand groceries." "That apartment was paid for in cash in 1975, Anderson said. "She owned it outright. She didn't need to clip coupons, she chose to. She wanted to maintain the appearance of modest means, wanted to be underestimated." He pulled out another document. Sophia's hands shook as she took it. "Estate summary for Catherine Lynn Chen, deceased, total assets, $615,000. Sophia read the number 3 times. Then she looked up at Anderson, certain there had been some mistake. "This says—" Her voice came out as a croak. "This can't be right." "It's right," Anderson confirmed. $615 million, and all of it goes to you." The room spun. Sophia gripped the edge of the conference table, trying to breathe, trying to process information that didn't make sense. "That's impossible. How—" "Chen Manufacturing is valued at approximately $800 million, Linda explained. "Your grandmother owned 75% of it outright. That's $600 million. Then there's commercial real estate in Chicago, New York, and San Francisco, worth about $85 million. Investment portfolios worth another $50 million. For $1 million after estate taxes and various expenses, you inherit approximately $615 million in assets." Emma started to fuss. Sophia automatically moved to soothe her, but her mind was somewhere else entirely, trying to understand how her grandmother had hidden wealth that could buy a small country. "Why didn't she tell me?" Sophia's voice broke. "Why did she let me struggle? Let me work multiple jobs? Let me—" Because she was testing you, Anderson said gently, making sure you developed character before you had money, making sure you understood what it meant to struggle, to survive, to be underestimated. She said, he pulled out a handwritten note, Catherine's distinctive script. She said, I want my granddaughter to know her own strength before she knows her inheritance. I want her to build herself before I give her the tools to build an empire. Sophia took the note with trembling hands, recognized her grandmother's handwriting, and started crying. Not sad tears, not happy tears. Just the overwhelming emotional release of everything colliding at once. The abandonment, the discovery, the impossibility of it all. Linda handed her tissues, waited patiently. Anderson sat quietly, letting her process. There's more, Anderson finally said, once Sophia's tears had slowed. Your grandmother left very specific instructions for you. She called it her justice protocol. He pulled out another folder, this one labeled with Sophia's name. Your grandmother, Anderson continued, spent the last year of her life documenting everything. She knew something was wrong with your marriage, knew your husband's family was trying to control you. So she prepared for this exact scenario. He opened the folder. Inside were photos. Marcus and Melissa together, time-stamped from months ago. Emails between Patricia and Melissa, discussing strategy. Bank records showing money transfers from Patricia to Melissa. A prenuptial agreement that Sophia had signed before her wedding, which Patricia had insisted on, that ironically protected Sophia's inheritance completely. She hired investigators, Anderson explained. Documented the affair, the manipulation, everything. She wanted to make sure that if something happened to her, if you were left vulnerable, you'd have the tools to fight back. Sophia stared at the evidence of her husband's betrayal, laid out in organized folders like a prosecution case. Her grandmother had known, had seen it coming, had prepared for it. Why didn't she warn me? She tried, Linda said softly. Do you remember the conversations in her last months? When she kept asking you if you were happy? If Marcus treated you with respect? If his family made you feel valued? Sophia did remember. Conversations that had seemed random at the time, but had clearly been probing for information. She knew the truth, Linda continued. But she also knew you weren't ready to hear it, that you needed to discover it on your own timeline. So she did what she could. She made sure you'd be protected when you finally understood. Anderson pulled out one more document, a letter, sealed in an envelope with Sophia's name written in Catherine's careful script. She left this for you, he said, to be opened when you learned about the inheritance. Sophia's hand shook as she broke the seal and unfolded the paper inside. My dearest Sophia, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I pray it brings you peace to know that I prepared for this moment. You've just learned that the grandmother who clipped coupons and lived modestly was actually quite wealthy. I imagine you're confused, perhaps even angry that I never told you. Let me explain. I wanted you to know your own strength first. I wanted you to build a life based on your abilities, not my money. I wanted you to understand what it meant to struggle, to survive, to be underestimated by people who thought you were weak. Because, Sophia, being underestimated is the greatest gift anyone can give you. When people think you're powerless, they reveal their true nature. They show you who they really are. And then you can decide what to do with that information. I suspect by now you've learned some painful truths about your marriage, about Marcus, about his family. I documented everything I could find, not to destroy them, but to protect you. To make sure you had proof when you were ready to fight back. Here's what you need to know. The money is yours. Completely, legally, untouchably yours. No one can take it, control it, or access it without your explicit permission. I structured it specifically to protect you from manipulation. Chen Manufacturing is yours to run or to sell. Linda Wang has agreed to stay on and help you understand the business if you choose to be involved. Or you can remain a silent owner and let the current management continue. The properties, the investments, the assets, all of it is designed to generate passive income so you never have to worry about money again. You and your daughter will be safe. Always. But here's the most important thing I want you to understand. This inheritance is not a solution to your problems. It's a tool. What you do with it, how you choose to use it, that's up to you. You can use it for revenge. You can use it for justice. You can use it to rebuild your life. You can use it to help others who've been in your situation. All of those are valid choices. Just remember what I always told you. Patience is the greatest weapon. People who act impulsively make mistakes. People who wait, who watch, who plan. Those are the people who win. You're a Chen woman. We don't break. We bend. We adapt. We survive. And then we make sure no one underestimates us again. I love you more than words can express. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. And I know you'll use this gift wisely. Show them what a Chen woman is made of. All my love. Grandma Sophia read the letter 3 times through tears that wouldn't stop. Emma was crying too now, needing to be fed, needing her mother to function despite the emotional overload. Linda stood up, gestured to a door at the side of the conference room. There's a private room through there, she said gently. Comfortable chair, privacy, everything you need to nurse Emma and take a moment to process all this. We'll be here when you're ready. Sophia went into the room, luxurious but functional, clearly designed for exactly this kind of situation, and sat down with Emma, letting her daughter nurse while her mind tried to absorb information that felt impossible. $615 million, a manufacturing empire, commercial real estate across 3 cities. Her grandmother, the quiet woman who'd taught her to be patient and strong, had been a business genius hiding in plain sight. And Marcus, who'd thrown her out yesterday thinking she was worthless, had just walked away from a fortune he couldn't even imagine. Sophia looked down at Emma, her daughter, who would now grow up with every advantage, every opportunity, every protection that money could buy. She thought about her grandmother's words. This inheritance is not a solution, it's a tool. And she thought about Patricia's satisfied smile, Marcus's cold indifference, Melissa's cruel text message. Justice or revenge? Her grandmother's letter suggested there was a difference. But sitting in that quiet room with her daughter, with the proof of her family's secret power, Sophia wasn't sure she cared about the distinction anymore. They'd tried to break her. Instead, they'd just freed her to become something far more dangerous than they'd ever imagined. A Chen woman with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Sophia spent 2 hours in that conference room going through every detail of her inheritance. Anderson and Linda walked her through property portfolios, stock holdings, business structures, and legal protections with the patience of people who'd been preparing for this conversation for months. Your grandmother set up 3 separate trusts, Anderson explained, pulling up organizational charts on the screen. The first manages Chen Manufacturing. That's where Linda comes in. The second handles the real estate portfolio. The third manages investment portfolios and liquid assets. All 3 are structured to protect you from any creditor claims, lawsuit attempts, or marital property disputes. Even though I was married when she died? Sophia asked. her mind still struggling to process the legal complexity. Especially because you were married when she died, Anderson confirmed. Catherine was very clear that this wealth was to remain separate property belonging solely to you. The prenuptial agreement you signed, the one Patricia Marshall insisted on, actually works in your favor now. It explicitly states that all family inheritance remains separate from marital assets. Linda leaned forward. The irony is perfect. Patricia thought she was protecting Marcus's modest trust fund. She accidentally protected your massive inheritance instead. Sophia thought about Patricia's manipulation, her constant efforts to control and diminish. Did my grandmother know about Patricia? About what she was planning? She suspected, Anderson said. The private investigators she hired documented Patricia's behavior going back 18 months. The pressure on Marcus to divorce you. The introduction of Melissa. The systematic isolation from your support network. Catherine saw it all happening and prepared accordingly. He pulled up another file on the screen. Emails, photos, bank records. Evidence of an affair and a conspiracy laid out with the precision of a legal case. This is everything, Anderson explained. Marcus and Melissa's relationship started 11 months ago, not recently like they claimed. Patricia paid Melissa $10,000 3 weeks before your grandmother's death. We have the bank transfer with consultation fee in the notes. But our investigator confirmed it was payment for pursuing Marcus. There are text messages between Patricia and Melissa strategizing how to convince Marcus you weren't good enough. It's all documented. Sophia stared at the evidence of her destruction, laid out so clinically. My grandmother was dying and spent her final months investigating my husband's affair. She was protecting you, Linda said gently. She knew she wouldn't be here to help you through this. So she made sure you'd have everything you needed to protect yourself. Anderson closed that file, opened another one. Now we need to talk about your immediate situation. You're currently at a women's shelter with a 3-week-old baby. That's not sustainable. What do you want to do? Sophia looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her arms. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. Start with the basics, Linda suggested. Housing. You own 3 properties in Chicago alone. There's a penthouse in the Loop, currently managed by a property company. A townhouse in Lincoln Park that your grandmother used occasionally. And a house in Evanston that's been rented out. Any of those could be ready for you within days. The penthouse, Anderson added, is probably the most practical. Full security, concierge service, everything you'd need with a newborn. Your grandmother kept it fully furnished and maintained, even though she rarely used it. Sophia tried to picture herself in a penthouse. Yesterday, she'd been walking through a blizzard with nowhere to go. Today, she apparently owned 3 homes in Chicago alone. The penthouse, she said quietly, because making any decision felt better than the paralysis of too many choices. Done, Anderson made a note. I'll have it ready by this evening. Security will be notified, keys will be prepared, and I'll make sure the refrigerator is stocked. How much? Sophia started to ask about cost, then stopped herself. She was worth $615 million. She didn't need to ask about the cost of groceries anymore. Linda seemed to read her thoughts. It takes time to adjust, she said kindly. Your grandmother said it took her years to really believe the money was real. To stop checking price tags. To understand that she didn't have to worry about basics anymore. What about my things? Sophia asked. From the house? Marcus has everything, clothes, Emma's baby supplies, photos. Do you want those things back? Anderson asked. Sophia thought about the house that was no longer hers, about rifling through belongings that Marcus and Patricia had probably already gone through. No, I just want new things, for Emma and for me. We can arrange that, Linda said. Personal shoppers, baby supplies, everything you need. Today, if you'd like. The efficiency was overwhelming. Sophia had spent 4 years with Marcus learning to ask permission, to apologize for spending money, to make herself small and apologize for existing. Now people were offering to fulfill her needs before she even fully articulated them. There's something else we need to discuss, Anderson said, his tone shifting to something more serious. What do you want to do about Marcus? What do you mean? He called our office this morning, Anderson said. He found the letter we sent you. He knows about the inheritance. He's already asking questions about his rights as your husband and Emma's father. The room suddenly felt colder. What did you tell him? That he has zero claim to any of it. That Catherine's estate is structured specifically to prevent spousal access. That if he attempts to harass you or interfere with your inheritance, we'll pursue legal action. Anderson paused. But you need to decide what you want to do about the divorce, custody, and everything else. Sophia looked at Emma, thought about Marcus's face as he'd confirmed the divorce yesterday, thought about the years of subtle belittlement and Patricia's controlling manipulation. I want full custody, she said quietly. Marcus abandoned her. He threw us out into a blizzard when she was 3 weeks old. He doesn't deserve shared custody after that. Agreed, Anderson said. We can file for emergency sole custody based on abandonment and child endangerment. The fact that he evicted you with a newborn in winter temperatures will carry significant weight. What about money? Linda asked. Do you want to pursue him for the $22,000 he stole from your joint account? For back support? For anything? Sophia thought about it. $22,000 that had seemed so important yesterday. Now it was barely a rounding error in her net worth. No, she said. I don't want his money. I just want him to understand what he gave up, what he threw away. Anderson and Linda exchanged glances. There are different ways to do that, Linda said carefully. Your grandmother's letter mentioned both justice and revenge as options. Which one appeals to you? What's the difference? Anderson pulled out another document. This one appeared to be notes in Catherine's handwriting. Your grandmother, he began, spent a lot of time thinking about this. She wrote down scenarios and strategies for how you might want to handle the situation when you discovered both the betrayal and the inheritance. He turned the document so Sophia could read it. Catherine's handwriting was neat, precise, organized into categories. Option 1, immediate public reveal. Pros, instant gratification, immediate consequences for Marcus. Cons, shows your hand too quickly, no time to fully plan, emotional rather than strategic. Option 2, strategic patience. Pros, time to plan, ability to position yourself publicly first, maximum impact when reveal happens. Cons, requires patience, requires pretending weakness while building strength. Option 3, quiet revenge. Pros, private satisfaction can destroy them financially, socially, without public spectacle. Cons, they might not fully understand why they're suffering. Recommended. Option 2, strategic patience. Let them think they won. Build your public presence as philanthropist and businesswoman. Position yourself as victim who survived and thrived. Then reveal the full truth at a moment of your choosing, when the contrast is maximum and undeniable. Sophia read her grandmother's notes twice, hearing Catherine's voice in the words. This was exactly how her grandmother had lived. Patient, strategic, always 3 moves ahead. How long would option 2 take? Sophia asked. Months, Linda said. Maybe 3 to 6 months. Time to transform physically, establish yourself publicly, build a narrative. Your grandmother believed that the best revenge wasn't hurting people quickly. It was letting them destroy themselves slowly, while you became everything they said you couldn't be. Anderson pulled up another presentation. Here's what that would look like. Over the next few months, you make strategic public appearances, charity events, business functions, society gatherings. You join boards. You make significant donations. You let people see you as a powerful, successful woman who survived betrayal and came out stronger. Meanwhile, Linda continued, Marcus watches from the sidelines. He can't access you, can't reach you, but he hears things, sees photos, realizes slowly what he gave up. The torture isn't the reveal. It's the slow understanding of his mistake. And Patricia? Sophia asked, thinking of her mother-in-law's satisfied smile. Patricia gets to watch her plan backfire completely, Linda said with something like satisfaction in her voice. She wanted Marcus divorced from you before the money transferred. She succeeded. But instead of freeing Marcus, she trapped him in a cage of his own regret while you soar past them all. Sophia looked at Emma, at her daughter who would grow up knowing her mother's strength, who would inherit a legacy of brilliant women who refused to be broken. Strategic patience, Sophia said. That's what my grandmother would want. That's what I want. Anderson nodded approvingly. Then we need to build you a team. Besides Linda and myself, you'll need a financial advisor to help you understand your investments, a public relations consultant to help manage your image, a personal assistant to handle daily logistics, and probably a therapist to process everything you've been through. Your grandmother anticipated all of this, Linda added. She left recommendations for people she trusted. With your permission, we can start making calls today. Yes, Sophia said, feeling something shift inside her. Not just agreement, but decision, agency, power. Yes to all of it. I want to do this right. Over the next 2 hours, they mapped out a strategy that would have made Catherine proud. Sophia would move into the penthouse today with Emma. She'd spend the next month recovering from childbirth, bonding with her daughter, and meeting with the team that Anderson and Linda would assemble. Then the transformation would begin. Personal trainer, nutritionist, stylist. Not because there was anything wrong with Sophia's postpartum body, but because physical transformation would be visible evidence of her emotional transformation. People would see the difference and create a narrative. Woman abandoned by husband finds strength and reinvents herself. Your grandmother lost 40 pounds after your grandfather died, Linda said. She talked about it in her notes. Said it wasn't about the weight itself, but about reclaiming her body, making it hers again, transforming physically to match her internal transformation. How long did it take her? Sophia asked. About 6 months to lose the weight. But she said the transformation started the moment she decided to do it. The moment she chose power over grief. Sophia looked at her own reflection in the conference room windows. She was heavy, exhausted, wearing borrowed clothes from a shelter. But underneath that, she could see the outline of who she'd been before Marcus and Patricia had spent years making her feel worthless. I can do 6 months, Sophia said. 6 months to transform, to build, to prepare, and then I show them exactly what they threw away. Anderson pulled out a calendar, began marking dates. We should target a major charity gala in 6 months. The Art Institute holds one in late June. Very high profile, all of Chicago's elite will be there. It would be the perfect venue for you to make your debut as yourself. Will Marcus be there? Almost certainly. His family has been trying to break into that social circle for years. They'll definitely attend if they can get tickets. Good, Sophia said, feeling a coldness settle over her that had nothing to do with yesterday's blizzard. I want him there. I want him to see it in person. Linda smiled. Your grandmother would be very proud of you right now. I hope so. Sophia looked down at Emma. I'm doing this for her, for my daughter. So she grows up knowing that women who get knocked down don't stay down. They plan, they prepare, and they come back stronger. Anderson stood, gathering his folders. Last thing we need to discuss today. Money. You need access to liquid funds immediately. I'm setting up a checking account in your name with an initial transfer of $10 million. That should cover your immediate needs while we work through the larger estate transfer. $10 million as a starting amount for immediate needs. Sophia almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Yesterday she'd had $0 and no way to buy diapers for her baby. Today she was discussing $10 million like it was pocket change. One more thing, Linda said, pulling out a final folder. Your grandmother left this for Emma, a trust fund that activates on her 18th birthday. Currently valued at about $100 million, structured to grow over time. Your daughter will never have to worry about money, college, anything. Sophia took the document, stared at numbers that secured her daughter's future in ways that seemed almost fictional. She thought of everything, Sophia whispered. Catherine spent 40 years planning for this, Anderson said. She knew she couldn't protect you from everything, but she could give you the tools to protect yourself. They wrapped up the meeting with logistics, phone numbers, access codes, security protocols. The town car that had brought Sophia would take her directly to the penthouse, stopping at a baby store on the way so she could get everything Emma needed. No shelter tonight, Linda said, squeezing Sophia's hand. No more struggling. No more fear. You're safe now. You and Emma both. As Sophia left the conference room, Emma in her arms and her entire life transformed in the span of a few hours. She caught her reflection in the glass walls. She still looked like the broken woman Marcus had abandoned. But underneath, something was changing. Something hard and determined and patient. Strategic patience. That's what her grandmother had called it. The greatest weapon. Marcus thought he'd won. Patricia thought she'd successfully removed an obstacle. Melissa probably thought she'd secured a prize. They had no idea what was coming. But in 6 months, they'd understand. And by then, it would be far too late to take back what they'd done. The penthouse was on the 48th floor of a building overlooking Lake Michigan. Floor-to-ceiling windows, 3 bedrooms, a nursery that had been professionally decorated but never used. Catherine had prepared it years ago, anticipating grandchildren, never knowing she'd die before meeting Emma. Sophia walked through rooms that cost more per month in maintenance fees than Marcus earned in a year, holding Emma, trying to reconcile this reality with yesterday's shelter cot. A woman was waiting for them, Asian, early 40s, warm smile. Mrs. Chen, I'm Jennifer Liu. Anderson Chen assigned me as your personal assistant. I've stocked the kitchen, set up the nursery, and coordinated with building security. You're completely safe here. No one gets up without your explicit permission. She handed Sophia a folder. This is everything you need for the next few days. Phone numbers, building info, food delivery options. I'll be back tomorrow to start coordinating your schedule, but tonight, just rest. After Jennifer left, Sophia stood in the middle of the living room, Emma in her arms, and finally let herself cry. Not sad tears, relief tears, shock tears, the tears of someone who'd been holding everything together through sheer will and could finally afford to fall apart. That night, sleeping in a bed that probably cost more than her first car, Sophia dreamed of her grandmother. Catherine standing in her small Chinatown apartment, smiling that knowing smile. "You understand now," Dream Catherine said. "Why I hid it. Why I made you struggle. You wanted me to know I could survive," Sophia heard herself say. "I wanted you to know you could thrive," Catherine corrected. "Survival is baseline. Thriving is choice. And now, you get to choose." Sophia woke up at 3 a.m. to Emma's cries, fed her daughter in a leather rocking chair that was worth more than any furniture she'd owned, and made a decision. She'd use these 6 months well, every single day. She'd transform not just her body, but her entire life. And when she was ready, she'd show Marcus and Patricia exactly what they'd thrown away. Week 3 to 4. Education and team assembly. Jennifer returned the next morning with reinforcements. First was Catherine Zhang, the financial advisor Anderson had recommended. "Your grandmother and I worked together for 15 years, Catherine explained, pulling out charts and portfolios on her tablet. "She taught me everything I know about strategic wealth management. Here's what you need to understand about your assets." Over the next 2 weeks, Catherine walked Sophia through every component of her inheritance. The manufacturing business that generated $3.2 million monthly in profit. The real estate portfolio that pulled in another $400,000 per month in rent. The investment accounts that grew by an average of 8% annually. "You currently have passive income of approximately $3.6 million per month," Catherine explained. "That's before you touch principal, before you sell anything, before you make any changes at all. You could literally do nothing, and that money would keep coming in." Sophia stared at the numbers, trying to make them feel real. "Here's what your grandmother wanted you to understand," Catherine continued. "This money isn't just for you. It's a tool. You can use it to help people, to build things, to create change. Catherine always said the difference between rich people and powerful people is what they do with their money." Next came Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, the therapist Anderson had recommended. "What you've been through is trauma," Dr. Rodriguez said during their first session, her office in the penthouse's second bedroom. "Emotional abuse, financial abuse, abandonment during your most vulnerable time. We need to work through that before you can move forward effectively." They met 3 times a week. Sophia talked about Marcus's gradual withdrawal, Patricia's constant criticism, the years of feeling like she was never enough. She cried through some sessions, raged through others, and slowly began to understand how thoroughly she'd been manipulated. "Marcus didn't just leave you," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "He spent years conditioning you to believe you deserved to be left. That's abuse, and recovering from it takes time." But time was something Sophia now had. Time and resources and space to heal. Week 4 brought Marcus Chen, no relation, the private investigator Catherine had hired. He delivered a full report, hundreds of pages documenting Marcus and Melissa's affair, Patricia's manipulation, even details Sophia hadn't known about. "Your husband and his mother planned this for 11 months, Marcus Chen explained, his voice matter-of-fact. "Patricia identified Melissa as a suitable replacement, paid her to pursue your husband, and systematically isolated you from support systems. It's one of the most calculated campaigns of emotional abuse I've documented." The report included text messages Sophia had never seen. Patricia to Melissa. "He still feels guilty about leaving. Keep reminding him how much weight she's gained, how much easier your life would be." Melissa to Patricia. "He's wavering. Should I tell him I'm pregnant? Would that seal the deal?" Patricia to Melissa. Yes, tell him you're pregnant. He'll choose you over her if he thinks he has 2 children to think about. We'll deal with the lie later. Sophia read through page after page of conspiracy, of lies, of cold-blooded manipulation. She felt rage, yes, but also something else. Clarity. These people had destroyed her life while thinking they were winning. They had no idea what was actually coming. Week 5 to 6. Public emergence. It's time to start your physical transformation, Jennifer announced on week 5. If you're comfortable with it? Sophia looked at herself in the mirror, still 60 pounds heavier than her wedding day, still carrying baby weight that would take months to lose, still looking like the woman Marcus had thrown away. I'm ready, she said. The trainer was named Alex Patel, early 30s, patient and professional. We're not trying to get you skinny, Alex explained during their first session. We're trying to get you strong. Your grandmother was very specific about that in her notes. She said physical strength would translate to emotional strength. They started slowly. Postnatal exercises, core strengthening. Nothing extreme, just consistent daily work. Sophia was surprised by how good it felt to move her body again, to feel muscles responding, to reclaim physical space she'd forgotten belonged to her. The nutritionist, Maria Santos, had a different approach. We're not dieting, Maria said firmly. We're fueling. Your body just created a human. You're nursing. You need nutrients, not restriction. She taught Sophia about balanced eating, about choosing foods that made her feel strong rather than foods that made her feel guilty, about the difference between eating for punishment and eating for power. Your grandmother had strong opinions about this, Maria shared. She said women were taught to make themselves smaller in every way, physically, emotionally, socially. She said the act of taking up space, of being substantial, of refusing to shrink, that was revolutionary. By week 6, Sophia had lost her first 10 pounds. Not from deprivation, but from movement and better nutrition and actually caring for her body instead of punishing it. She also started making strategic public appearances. The first was a low-key visit to Chen Manufacturing. Linda gave her a tour of the main Chicago facility, introducing her to floor managers and engineers who'd worked for Catherine for decades. Your grandmother talked about you constantly, one manager said. She was so proud of you. Said you were going to do great things with this company. Sophia walked through the facility where her grandmother had built an empire, saw the efficiency and care that went into every process, and felt something settle in her chest. This was real. This was hers. This was the legacy Catherine had spent 40 years building. The second appearance was a small charity event, a luncheon for a women's shelter. Not the one where Sophia had stayed, but another that Catherine had quietly supported for years. Sophia donated $50,000 and gave a brief speech about the importance of supporting women in crisis. No mention of Marcus, no mention of her own recent homelessness, just quiet, dignified support. A society blogger took her photo, posted it with the caption, "Mystery philanthropist Sophia Chen supports women's shelter with generous donation. Who is she?" The third appearance was harder. A gallery opening in River North. Public, crowded, full of people who might recognize her as Marcus Marshall's ex-wife. Jennifer helped her dress, a simple black dress that fit her current body, elegant but not flashy. "You look powerful," Jennifer said. "That's what matters." Sophia walked into that gallery with Emma in a designer carrier and felt eyes turn toward her. Whispers. Recognition. But not the whispers of pity she'd feared. These were whispers of curiosity, of interest, of who is she? A woman approached, mid-50s, impeccably dressed. "Sophia Chen? I'm Margaret Winters. I knew your grandmother. She was extraordinary." "Thank you," Sophia said, falling into the polite small talk that her architecture training had prepared her for. "Are you managing Catherine's business interests?" Margaret asked. "I'm learning," Sophia replied carefully. "My grandmother left me a lot to live up to." "She left you the tools to succeed," Margaret corrected. "Catherine always said her granddaughter would surprise people. I'm beginning to understand what she meant." The conversation lasted 10 minutes. Margaret introduced Sophia to 3 other people, all business owners or philanthropists Catherine had known. By the end of the evening, Sophia had 2 invitations to charity boards and 1 lunch request from a venture capitalist. She drove home feeling something she hadn't felt in years: capable. Week 7 to 8, Strategic Positioning Month 2 brought more dramatic changes. Sophia was down 25 pounds total now, her body responding to consistent training and proper nutrition. She'd regained muscle tone lost during pregnancy. Her face had sharpened, her confidence visible in how she carried herself. Jennifer arranged a meeting with a personal stylist, someone who dressed CEOs and politicians and understood the language of power clothing. "We're not trying to make you look young," the stylist explained, pulling pieces that emphasized authority over sex appeal. "We're trying to make you look formidable." The investment was significant: $20,000 for a complete wardrobe overhaul. A year ago, Sophia would have balked at spending that much. Now she understood it as business expense. Every appearance mattered. Every photo communicated a message. The transformation wasn't just physical. Sophia had started attending business meetings for Chen Manufacturing, sitting in on board calls, learning the operations her grandmother had spent decades building. She asked questions, took notes, and let Linda teach her the industry. "You're a natural," Linda said after one particularly successful negotiation with a supplier. "Catherine knew you would be." "How did she know?" Sophia asked. "I'd never shown any interest in business." "Because you're strategic," Linda replied. "You think 3 moves ahead. You see patterns. Those are business skills. You just didn't know you had them because you spent 4 years being told you were incompetent." The public appearances increased. Sophia accepted a position on the board of the Art Institute, attended a fundraiser for children's literacy, joined a breakfast club for women entrepreneurs where she networked with CEOs and venture capitalists. Each appearance generated buzz. Society pages started running profiles. The mysterious Sophia Chen, heiress to the Chen manufacturing fortune, is quickly becoming one of Chicago's most influential philanthropists. No mention of Marcus. No mention of the divorce. Just a narrative of a powerful woman emerging into public life. But of course, people talked. Chicago's elite circles were small enough that word spread. Marcus's mother, Patricia, heard things at her country club. Marcus himself started seeing Sophia's name in social media posts, tagged at events he could never access. Week 8 brought the encounter Sophia had been both dreading and anticipating. She was at a charity luncheon at the Drake Hotel, seated at a VIP table with a museum board chair and 2 venture capitalists, when she saw Patricia Marshall across the room. Patricia saw her too. Their eyes met. Patricia's face went through several emotions: shock, confusion, calculation, before settling into something cold and hard. Sophia watched her former mother-in-law make excuses to her table companions and walk over. Her designer dress and expensive jewelry suddenly looking cheap compared to Sophia's understated elegance. "Sophia," Patricia said, her voice tight, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Patricia," Sophia replied calmly. "How are you?" Patricia's eyes scanned Sophia's designer dress, her evident weight loss, the expensive watch on her wrist. "Where are you getting the money for all this?" Patricia asked bluntly. "Marcus said you were at a shelter. Now you're at VIP tables making six-figure donations. Did you take out loans? Because if you're going into debt to make some point—" "I'm not in debt," Sophia interrupted, her voice pleasant but final. "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." Patricia leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Marcus called some lawyer. Said something about your grandmother having money. But that's impossible. Catherine Chen lived in a tiny apartment in Chinatown. My grandmother lived exactly how she chose to live," Sophia said. "As it turns out, she had excellent reasons for maintaining a low profile." "How much money are we talking about?" Patricia's greed was visible now, calculations happening behind her eyes. "Because Marcus has rights as Emma's father. If there's family money, he should—" "Marcus has zero rights to my inheritance," Sophia interrupted again, ice in her voice now. "My grandmother structured everything specifically to prevent spousal access. Even if we were still married, which we're not, Marcus would have no claim to anything." Patricia's face went pale, then red. "You can't just—" "I can," Sophia said, "and I have. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my table. It was lovely seeing you, Patricia." She walked away without looking back, feeling Patricia's furious stare on her spine, and returned to her table where the museum board chair was waiting with business card from someone who wanted to discuss a real estate investment. That night, Sophia looked at herself in the mirror. 30 pounds down total now. Muscle definition returning, face looking less exhausted, more powerful, hair styled professionally, skin glowing from proper nutrition and care. She looked like herself again. Not the self Marcus had known. That woman was gone. But the self she'd been before Marcus, before Patricia, before years of being made to feel small. 3 more months, she told her reflection. 3 more months, and then we show them everything. Emma cooed from her crib. Sophia picked up her daughter, kissed her soft hair. "Your grandmother was brilliant," Sophia whispered. "She knew exactly how to wait, how to plan, how to strike at the perfect moment. And she taught me the same skills. Strategic patience, the greatest weapon.